This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I am one of the hosts of this show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X at Michael5Ritter, on Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms, including on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience. I am looking forward to today, obviously. I'm recording this on Saturday morning, technically. It's still 11:45 a.m. where I am, but nonetheless, it's the Royal Rumble. One of the best days of the entire year. Like, it's finally here, and just being completely honest, I look forward to this event every single year. A year ago yesterday, I was there. I was in San Antonio with my good buddy John. You guys know John. He's been here. He's hosted the SmackDown review with me for quite some time. We had decent seats. We were able to see the entrance, see the clock tick down, and the venue, the Alamo Dome. It's kind of similar to where they are tonight. I think Tropicana Field. It's a professional baseball field, so obviously a massive stadium. The Alamo Dome is it's used for football, like bowl games. The Alamo Bowl is there, which the Oklahoma Sooners were in this year, and many other teams have played there. They've hosted many Royal Rumbles, many other events. So it's definitely got the size checked off the box. And it's going to be the same thing tonight at Tropicana Field. I'm definitely looking forward to this version of the Royal Rumble with Triple H already well entrenched as the creative booker. So I'm excited to see what he does with such a big WrestleMania on the horizon. We already have been talking about it for weeks now. WrestleMania 40 is so close, you can almost touch it. The fact that we are starting the process and the road to WrestleMania tonight, you're going to see the sign. It's going to be up in the crowd that whoever wins both the respective men and women's Royal Rumble, they're going to point up to the sign. It's just what you do at this point. You either love it or you hate it. It's not going anywhere, so you might as well just embrace it one way or the other. But it just kind of sets the tone for what's to come. It kind of just lets you know that good things are in store, because that's just how they approach WrestleMania season. This is when they save their best ideas, the best storylines, all the storylines that have already been going on for the better part of 6 months to a year, such as Damage Control and that inner collapse. I expect that to kind of have a turn tonight, one way or the other, whether Bayley wins or she gets eliminated. I think that this is going to be a massive turning point in that, and obviously we'll continue to talk about that once we get to further things that happened on SmackDown. But I'm just kind of referencing the importance of the Royal Rumble and what it means to not only just like the calendar year, right? Like, we're in 2024. This is the first big pay-per-view of this year. So that's a big thing in of itself. And then you also factor in what it means to the wrestling year. Like, this is not the start of the wrestling year. Technically, that's like the Monday after WrestleMania. That's like whenever you're starting from scratch. Bam. You're able to experiment and do this and that. And you have new champions usually. Like, the Royal Rumble is where things get revved up. That's whenever you shift gears, so to speak, and you take things to another level. And I do expect that to be the case. I mean, just last year, think about what happened at the Royal Rumble. Obviously, Sami Zayn turned on the Bloodline, specifically Roman Reigns. Cody Rhodes won the Royal Rumble, which set up him getting a chance at Roman Reigns, at WrestleMania in Hollywood last year. And Rhea Ripley winning the Royal Rumble, which was a phenomenal one to witness. Gunther had a pretty good performance himself at last year's Rumble. That's what really excites me about tonight, because there's so many possibilities. There's so many different outcomes. You're going to see returns, possibly. Probably going to be a couple one-offs, a couple joke entrances that really don't mean anything, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. I will be honest. I truly prefer the Royal Rumble and the structure and how spots are given out to be really, I guess, a very strategic thing for WWE. And I felt like they kind of did that on this episode of SmackDown. I'm not sure if they did it on Raw. Admittedly, I haven't been able to watch Raw as much as I would like to. Now, sometimes I do, but if they did have the little balls on Monday Night Raw, I missed it. And having them, just that little, I don't even know what the hell you call that thing, but it's pretty much like a lottery type approach to giving wrestlers their Royal Rumble numbers. Like, there's actually a method to it. It makes sense. You see somebody come out at their specific number, and it's like, oh, well, I know why they're coming out then. Is because that's the number that they drew, and it was randomized. That just makes the Royal Rumble itself so much more fun. And if you broke it down, we've kind of talked about it, 15 per brand. Because I'm not counting NXT. That's another one that I accept a couple of them. That kind of is just, how WWE has done it. I'm not going to complain about that at all. I know NXT has some really talented wrestlers, and this isn't about if they're good enough to be on the, or in the Royal Rumble. It's not that they're not capable of competing with the talent that's going to be in the ring. It's just simply the Royal Rumble is about the main roster. Like, the Royal Rumble is, it's really focused on storylines that are going to be utilized heading to WrestleMania. There's not NXT programs on the WrestleMania card. That's just not how things work. I understand why they do it, though. There is some talent that they just want to see. How does the crowd react to this person? There are some diehard NXT fans. They're going to be in attendance. They're going to be watching live at home wherever they live. So clearly, the decision to bring up NXT wrestlers for the Royal Rumble is going to make a lot of people happy. I could be in the minority here. That's just kind of how I feel about it. Whereas I think the Raw brand and the SmackDown brand have more than enough talent. Like, have an NXT Royal Rumble. Why not that? I think that's something that could possibly be a realistic thing in the future. Like, NXT, they might not call it the Royal Rumble. They'll probably call it something else. I will say, just give credit to NXT right now. Some of the pay-per-views that they have, I really like. Like NXT Vengeance Day, I think, is one of them. The Great American Bash, they bring back some of the vintage pay-per-views, which I'm all about. I've already done probably a top 5 in the past. Might do another one in the future, just specifically about the Ruthless Aggression and the Attitude Era pay-per-views that are no longer a thing. They kind of got retired, and they have some really good ties. Like No Way Out, some of the most impactful matches that I can remember took place at No Way Out, because it used to be right there between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. So things were really juicy at that time. And for some reason, they took that pay-per-view out, as well as many others. So I've always given credit to NXT for dusting off those old pay-per-views and bringing them back. So this isn't like a shot at NXT. It's more so trying to show more respect to the main roster and what this Royal Rumble is. So I understand that there are going to be some spots reserved for specific NXT wrestlers in both the men and women's Royal Rumble match. So I'm not going to complain about that. But just in my hypothetical world here, where I'm talking about a way to make the Royal Rumble mean a little bit more every single year, is to do what they did this year. Have the wrestlers select balls out of that randomized thing, and you can kind of just get their spots determined that way. And then leave up to 5 that are a mystery. We don't need to see, I guess, people the crowd popped for Booker T last year. Whenever he entered the Royal Rumble, it was pretty cool. I will say, just being there in person, hearing his music. I haven't seen him live in person in such a long time that it was a pretty cool experience being there, but we knew that he wasn't going to win. We knew he had absolutely no shot. So I think that there are certain times where, bringing a legend back is cool, and, it's fun. The crowd enjoys it. But with there only being 30 spots, and this being one of the deepest rosters in arguably WWE history, I understand Ruthless Aggression and Attitude Era, the top of the roster, littered with Hall of Fame talent, just absolutely star-studded. That right there might not be matched. But when you look at the mid-card, the lower card, the people that are sitting on the bench right now in this era, compared to the people that were at the mid to lower card to sitting on the bench back then, it is a little bit different. Now, obviously, it's the Ruthless Aggression era and the Attitude Era. They can hold a candle to anything. They can sit at any table and have any type of conversation about wrestling because they legitimately have that much credibility to their name. And I think that's more of a credit to how good the talent is right now, like how good the roster is right now, that you can even make the discussion. Like, I'm not saying that the environment, the storylines, anything like that, like I'm not saying that the era right now is as good as what it was back then. I'm just saying that from a wrestler to wrestler standpoint, whenever you look at the talent, the era that WWE has right now is extremely talented. And it's probably the most talented that it's been in like 15 years, if I'm going to, say so myself. But that's just my opinion. You are more than welcome to let me know what your thoughts are on that, because I really haven't even thought about that up to this point. Like, this is kind of the first time that I've actually said it out loud, that the roster that WWE has right now is pretty damn good. Now, you got your champion never showing up, so that does kind of factor into the equation, but still, just when you're talking about the rosters, I am very impressed with what WWE has right now. And I would love to know your thoughts about that. But let's go ahead and get into this episode of SmackDown, which was the go-home show for the Royal Rumble this year. It was in Miami, Florida, at the Kaseya Arena or the Kaseya Center. Let me go ahead and actually pull that up, because the Kaseya Center, okay, used to be the American Airlines Arena, I believe, because the American Airlines Center is in Dallas. That's where the Mavericks play. But the American Airlines Arena, the American Airlines Arena was in Miami, Florida. So that is, where LeBron James did his damage back in the 2010 to like 2014, that time frame, and even up to just a couple of years ago. That's just always been the sponsor of that stadium. Now it's the Kaseya Center, and the Celtics have, obviously, if you're a longtime listener, I'm a Boston Celtics fan. They actually played the Miami Heat in the Kaseya Center just like last Thursday or something like that, and they beat they scored 140-something points, so that's pretty good in the NBA, and obviously we had like 42 points in the first quarter, so a lot of success in that arena, and it was pretty cool seeing the WWE team, what they did to it and what they made that arena look like. They always do a phenomenal job, especially like Madison Square Garden, how they have that entrance on the side of the ring that they're able to use. I'm intrigued to see what the stage looks like tonight, but I'm always extremely impressed with what the WWE production team does with the arena, and just how they set it all up and everything like that. Like, credit to them. I'm sure it takes days to do massive events. Obviously WrestleMania, that's probably like a week's worth of work. A SmackDown itself, they could probably do that in a day. They probably got that already down where they could start at like noon or so, and they got it ready by the time, the fans start filling up the arena. But either way, I always want to give them, a shout out, because a lot of people just think that it's easy to throw up all these LED screens and get the ramp and the stage set up and, the right places to do the pyro. You got people literally harnessed up behind the stage, like behind that massive Jumbotron. If you ever get seats at a live event and you're up there kind of in a restricted view, quote unquote, where it's not quite visible, you'll be able to see behind that stage, and there are people that are literally just, they're not zip lining, but they're pretty much just harnessed up and they're almost floating. And you'll notice they're always working whenever the pyro is about to go off. So it's kind of like when you see those guys, you're able to brace for it, because that's one thing that I always mention when I go to a live event, especially like a televised one. You really underestimate how loud that pyro is. And I expect tonight at the Royal Rumble, there's probably going to be quite a bit of pyro. There always is at the Royal Rumble. You got two people that are going to be achieving a massive dream tonight. So clearly it needs to be celebrated properly. But anyways, back to the episode of SmackDown. The way that this one started off was with the Latin Grammy winner, Eladio, I believe is his name, Carrion. I'll just go ahead and know I probably butchered that, but it is what it is. He's introducing Randy Orton, because obviously earlier in the year we saw a video called RKO that was by this Latin singer, and Randy Orton actually makes an appearance in that. It's pretty dope if you haven't already seen that. Just Randy Orton, you could tell he's coming out of his shell a little bit. He's having fun with what he's doing. He's using his stardom, and people who did grow up massive Randy Orton fans are now the age where they're, reaching stardom in their own field. Whatever it is that they're doing. There's wrestling fans worldwide. And They usually, look at Bad Bunny. This is just another version of that, although maybe not to the same extent. Bad Bunny actually got in the ring and had a massive main event match at Backlash last year. So a little bit different of a comparison, but still in that same category of just, a celebrity who has connections with the WWE. And this guy actually made another appearance later on in this episode of SmackDown. You see he's backstage speaking with somebody. I'm not exactly sure the interview person that he was talking to, but they ask who's going to win the Universal Championship match at the Royal Rumble, and he obviously predicted Randy Orton. What's he going to say? He's made a song about the guy. You think he's going to pick LA Knight or AJ Styles? Like, no, obviously he's going to pick Randy Orton, but Solo Sikoa and the rest of the bloodline, Jimmy Uso and Paul Heyman, they really don't appreciate his prediction there, and they try intimidating him. It actually came off a little bit more funny than maybe it was supposed to, but I did find some joy from watching this segment. But as Randy Orton is cutting a promo about his Royal Rumble match, AJ Styles comes out and he pretty much accuses Randy Orton of overlooking him. And he reminds him that he has a receipt for the RKO that Randy Orton hit on him last week. And another shout out I have to give is the actual production team of WWE, because as AJ Styles was introducing LA, or not, he wasn't even introducing LA Knight. He was just about to, say his name. He was fixing his lips to say LA Knight. And right whenever he did that, at the perfect time, LA Knight's music cued, and it just lined up perfectly. He says, "I don't care if I have to step over you," referring to Randy Orton, or LA Knight, and his music hit, and it was just done so well. One of those things that, again, can get overlooked, but somebody had to time that perfectly. They were sitting back there, they were just watching AJ Styles' lips, and they knew that they had to, hit that music at the right time. So I just, obviously wanted to give another shout out to the production team. But LA Knight actually stole this segment with his line where, he was talking about his main event match with Solo Sikoa, which did end up closing the show tonight. He says, "I got to fight Solo. That's what I'll do. I'll hit him so damn hard that he'll start doing his dad's dance moves." And he starts, doing a little bit of a dance, obviously referencing Rikishi. This was some gold. Like this, it got a pop from the crowd. Randy Orton even smirked a little bit. It's getting all types of love online. So LA Knight obviously stole the segment, but it ended with AJ Styles doing exactly what he said whenever he first came out, mentioning that he had a receipt for Randy Orton. He hits him with a Pele kick. And then AJ Styles backstage gets approached by the Bloodline, who pretty much, Jimmy Uso, he's trying to put it in AJ Styles' head that, hey, it is best case scenario for everybody. It's in everybody's best interest. If we can take out LA Knight, if we can somehow put him on the shelf, you have an easier shot at retaining your title. Roman Reigns obviously is going to be happy about this. So there's no way that, there's no possible outcome after you attack LA Knight that is bad for anybody other than LA Knight. Orton, Styles, and Reigns, it would become a triple threat match, and obviously everyone would have a better shot at winning the belt. So AJ Styles, he's a little bit like, you can tell he's kind of thinking about it, but the OC approach AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and Michin. And Carl Anderson says, "Hey, what the hell was that about?" And AJ Styles just says, "Don't worry about it." So it's moments like that that make you think AJ Styles is going to turn heel, or he is already a heel. And then there's other moments where it's like, is he heel? Like, is he really heel? Because you don't really know. So he's just one of those. I don't really want to call him a vigilante, but he's kind of floating that line. And sometimes those are the best types of gimmicks for wrestlers. But just kind of continuing on here with this whole stuff, like this whole program going on with the Bloodline and AJ Styles and all that good stuff. Paul Heyman did meet with the Bloodline backstage. We did get a chance to see kind of their huddle up, so to speak. And he pretty much just told them each to do one thing. He told Solo Sikoa, who you guys all know is supposedly the tribal heir, or the tribal heir to the throne, or the seat, I should say, the seat at the head of the table. You guys know what I'm trying to say, but nonetheless, he pretty much tells him to solve the problem. Just, do what you have to do to make this easier for Roman Reigns. And that's obviously what Heyman is hinting at with Solo Sikoa, and Solo knows to do just that. That's pretty much all he's done which is a whole nother thing. Like, I'm glad that they're starting to do a little bit more with Solo. And when I say more, I'm using that word pretty loosely just because for the longest time, he hasn't really done anything different. Like, since he's come up to the main roster, he's been the exact same person, and he hasn't had any type of development. But because he came in at the top, paired with Roman Reigns being pretty much his right-hand man after the whole, interfering and causing Drew McIntyre to lose his championship at Clash at the Castle. So Solo Sikoa was pretty much born on third. Like, he started his WWE main roster career already on third base, and that might confuse some people to think that he hit a triple, to think that he did something so well to put him there at the top, where in reality we really haven't seen much from Solo Sikoa at all. So I've realized that, and I'm definitely starting to take note of it, but I'm glad that they are starting to, I guess make him seem more like a hothead, or like someone that is starting to feel the pressure of not being able to solve the problems, maybe since he's been on a losing streak since he beat John Cena. There's a lot of things to factor in with Solo, but I will say that I almost don't even feel confident whenever Roman Reigns or Paul Heyman say, hey, fix this problem, go do that, he's the problem solver or something like that. Like, I don't feel very comfortable with Solo Sikoa's chances in those situations these days. He lost to Cody Rhodes. I mean, he obviously beat John Cena, but I mean, he's lost left and right to people. Randy Orton got in. There's so many times that he's come up short. I know these are main event players that I'm saying, but he's in the main event picture and he isn't winning. So I think that it's pretty important for him to start getting on the right track, and we'll see if that happens anytime soon. But the thing that Paul Heyman told Jimmy Uso to do was to enter the Royal Rumble, win it, and then go defeat a one-legged Seth Rollins. He just references Seth over there, pretty much just like a wounded animal. Everybody's licking their lips, looking at that World Heavyweight Championship, looking at it like an opportunity, thinking that, Seth Rollins is going to be gone. Let me step in here and take the seat at the throne over on Monday Night Raw. But he would want him to bring that World Heavyweight Championship to the Bloodline, which would make the Bloodline stronger, more historic, all that good stuff. And, pretty much if he were to do that, then that would maybe have some implications to the family line of succession, meaning that Solo Sikoa wouldn't be the heir to the throne anymore. Maybe Jimmy Uso would, if he could pull off something like this. If he could go get the World Heavyweight Championship, win a Royal Rumble, have that all on his resume, there's a chance that it could change the way that everybody views, Jimmy Uso. But I will say, he did select his number for the Royal Rumble, and it didn't look good. We didn't see what number it was. They didn't show us or anything like that, which is fine. Just show us that they selected their number. That's all I'm asking for, which is exactly what they did. So I'm giving him credit here. But Jimmy Uso did not like his number. You could tell just by the look on his face. His body language tells me that it was probably in the single digits, and I'm expecting to hear his music and see him come out relatively early in the show. But the final thing that happened with the Bloodline and just this whole main event Royal Rumble picture and all the contenders, it actually happened by closing the show. We got the main event match, which was Solo Sikoa versus LA Knight. And, this is where we knew some type of interference was going to happen. I knew that someone was going to come out and make this sloppy. I didn't know if it was going to have an actual finish or not, and it ended up not. Obviously, LA Knight technically get the win because of a disqualification after AJ Styles jumped on the barricade, hit him with a phenomenal forearm. But the match itself between Solo and LA Knight really was kind of an afterthought. The real juice, the real meat and potatoes of this thing was what happened with the Bloodline. Jimmy Uso just, politely, smartly sliding the chair to AJ Styles saying, hey, do your thing, do what you got to do here. It did seem like maybe the approach that Jimmy Uso was using is more successful than what Solo Sikoa is doing, and just, the brute route, the brutal way to do things. And I don't know, maybe just something to think about there, that Jimmy Uso might have a smarter way of doing things. Maybe it might not be the best way, but it's the most efficient way. And that's, something that Roman Reigns might take note of. And it might actually come up meaningful in the next coming months, because I know that Jimmy Uso is going to be a big-time player in all this stuff. And just a little bit of a spoiler, I'm excited to see the interaction between Jimmy and Jay in the Royal Rumble tonight, because that it's going to come. At some point, we're going to get them throwing punches at each other and possibly taking each other out of the Royal Rumble. Ooh, that would be nice. That would be my prediction. They eliminate each other because they're beating the hell out of each other so bad that we see them go over the top rope together. Neither one of them get a shot at the title, and that just sets up because now Jimmy Uso doesn't have the World Heavyweight Championship option to go at. The only thing that might be able to, save face and buy him some grace with the Bloodline is to take out the one who turned his back on them, his twin brother, and that right there could set up Jimmy versus Jay at WrestleMania. So that's just one way that you can do things. The Royal Rumble is such a launch pad. It's such a crutch for WWE. Like, they could lean on this to start a program out of thin air, start a rivalry out of thin air. That's what they did with Brock Lesnar and Goldberg back in 2003 when they had that interaction backstage. And they kind of, had that little face-to-face and, Brock Lesnar was calling Goldberg out for losing his World Heavyweight Championship. Goldberg entered that Royal Rumble number 30. He was the odds-on favorite to win it. He was damn near going to. And Brock Lesnar, who wasn't even in the match, slid under that bottom rope, F5'd Goldberg. Goldberg got up, obviously, turned his attention to Brock Lesnar, and that's when Kurt Angle came up from behind, eliminated him, and that set up the WrestleMania match that ended both of their first stints in WWE. So that was, obviously a very meaningful moment that kind of, it wasn't even the most juicy thing. Someone entered number 1 and won that Royal Rumble. That's why, whenever I talk about 2003, like, the depth that was just constantly on our television screens was just beautiful stuff. It was absolutely art, is something that I'll say. But anyways, back to the main event. As AJ Styles was picking up the chair, who knows what he was going to do with it, but Solo comes up and he says, do it. Hit him, take care of him, or I'm going to take care of you. And right there, AJ Styles, obviously, I knew right there, I was like, you dumbass, like, why would you do that? Bam. Shot to the midsection at Solo, shot to the midsection at Jimmy Uso. And then bam, just starts hitting him on the back, all that good stuff. Pretty much put Solo Sikoa through the announce table. He tries to anyways. Those announce tables are strong as hell these days. It's not easy going through them. But Randy Orton, as the crowd was chanting his name, finally comes out. He kind of evens the odds a little bit. He's actually the one who's left standing as SmackDown went off the air. As SmackDown was going off the air, I should correct myself. LA Knight comes out of nowhere, literally, like, took a page out of Randy Orton's book, pulled him off the top rope, bam, blunt force trauma, and steals the spotlight, literally, as SmackDown actually went off the air. So I jumped the gun a little bit by saying Randy Orton, because that's how I felt in the moment, kind of reading my thoughts here. And I really thought that Randy Orton was going to be the one standing victorious. And obviously that was not the case. I think we all know who's going to be standing victorious tonight in the actual match, but there's really no way of predicting how it's going to happen. You know that it's going to be tricky. If Roman Reigns were to get a clean win in the Fatal 4-Way match, I think that would probably give him a little more, I guess, leeway with the fans, because I think fans are kind of getting fed up. They're kind of getting fed up with him always staying away. I don't think that they have a problem with how he wins his matches. They've kind of just come to accept it at this point that he's going to have somebody interfere. It's definitely going to be the case tonight. I would be shocked if he got a clean win, but I think if he did, the shock that it would give me would be like, damn, Roman Reigns, he still got it. He's still probably going to have this championship for a hell of a long time. But let's go ahead and get into some of the other big ticket items that happened on this episode of SmackDown. We got a one-on-one match between Santos Escobar and Carlito, and obviously Santos got the win via a folding press. So these two factions are kind of going at it. Santos Escobar also went backstage and selected his number. I really couldn't tell if he was happy or sad with his, but I could tell that Bobby Lashley was happy because he went in there at the exact same time as Santos Escobar, and they both selected their numbers. Which, as I'm talking about them, selecting their numbers backstage, I noticed that Ava Raine was back there, The Rock's daughter. Apparently, she's the general manager. They said the youngest general manager in WWE history. So that's news to me. I did not know. I admittedly do not watch NXT. I haven't since a lot of the people left. Like, oh man, I was actually watching NXT on a regular basis back in like 2016, 2017, and they changed at some point. It kind of switched from what it used to be to something else, because I really appreciated the really small crowd it was almost like an indie feel whenever you watched an NXT show. And now it's like another brand. It's damn near a third brand at this point. But I do need to look into that because Ava Raine, I thought that maybe she'd become a wrestler just being The Rock's daughter. But if she is going to get into strictly being just an on-camera personality, who knows? I mean, her father is one of the most charismatic wrestlers of all time. So clearly she already has it in her DNA to bring that and probably a lot more to the table. But she was back there with Nick Aldis the entire time, just giving people their numbers. Like I mentioned, Bobby Lashley, Santos Escobar, obviously Jimmy Uso as well. We also saw Bianca Belair and Bayley both get their numbers, but Bianca Belair seemed a lot more happy. So you probably won't see Bianca very early in the Royal Rumble, which would be pretty good. I wouldn't be shocked if she won it. One of the first things that I did on this show as the host was predict in October of 2020 that Bianca, as an NXT call-up, was going to win the 2021 Royal Rumble. And obviously that ended up coming to fruition. I do need to have another one like that at some point, another prediction I can hang my hat on. But Bianca did have a very good response. Bayley, on the other hand, she looked like, oh, man. So is Bayley going to have a low number? Because she's a lot of people's dark horse to possibly sneak away with a Royal Rumble win. There's only been a handful of women's wrestlers actually declare for the Royal Rumble. So it's going to be like 90% a surprise. So that's going to be something, I'm looking forward to because I don't like it all being announced. Like I don't like whenever awards are announced before award shows. I don't like movies being spoiled. I damn sure don't want Royal Rumble entrants to be spoiled. Let all of them be a surprise. But just have there be a specific format on how they get in. That's totally cool. But in terms of what number they are and who's coming out when and where, whatever, that can all be, a surprise because I feel like that does make it a lot better. R-Truth, he also drew seemed like it was a pretty good Royal Rumble number because he was extremely excited. Although he did confuse Nick Aldis with Adam Pearce several times. Thanks, Adam. That was pretty funny. Just R-Truth, he never fails to bring some comedy to a spot that didn't need any comedy, and that's just what he does. He's one of the best of all time at that. And if you're factoring in his 24/7 title reigns, R-Truth is a Hall of Famer. So we just need to put some respect on his name because I do believe he's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. And his speech is probably going to be just hysterical. So I'm looking forward to that. Continuing on here, what else happened? I think the only thing I have not talked about, other than, Bayley having another vignette that was centered around her and creating Damage Control and taking credit for all the success. Like I said, tonight, like the reason why they reminded us about that last night, like I can feel it. Like I will come on the show and eat my words and admit that I was wrong, but I think that Bayley, something is going to happen, and I've been feeling it for months, and it seems like tonight is the night where she's the Sami Zayn of 2024, where maybe that faction takes a massive turn. But speaking of Damage Control, the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships were on the line. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, they defended those championships against the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, and this was a phenomenal match. I'm just going to say that. Like I said it multiple times, like I am so glad that I'm actually, zeroed in on this match because there were spots, and I haven't talked about it last week, I'm not sold on the current women's tag team champions. And of course they lose the championships right whenever I finally get sold on them. I was watching them perform against this tag team, who I am high on, the Kabuki Warriors, and see them hold their own. I found myself pulling for them. I legitimately found myself rooting for the champs. I was hoping that they would get it done. I like their gear. I think they work well together as a team. And it sucks that it ended the way that they did, or the way that it did, because I thought that they did put on a hell of a performance, both of them. I did want to give them a shout out here on the show because I think they really earned it. But I just, I'm glad that the titles are with Damage Control, because you guys know how I feel about that faction. They're extremely strong. These championships just do more, and they're going to make them, mean more as we head into WrestleMania season, because you already know that Damage Control is going to have those titles heading into Mania. That's just how it's going to be. I would be shocked if they lost them at any point before WrestleMania. So now we find out who is going to be the one to get them back. And I would be surprised, or I guess, because there's not even a women's tag team division. But I'm officially pulling for Kaden Carter and Katana Chance to get back and regain those titles at WrestleMania. And it's crazy because I had a completely different stance last week, but I feel like they deserve it. And why not give them the opportunity to have a moment like that at WrestleMania? If they, can have a program worthy, if they can make it meaningful and build it and make us want to see it. Because they're going to have to do that, on the microphone and with their personalities. Because I think that, they got the in-ring stuff down. Like, they're a talented tag team inside the ring. But similar to Ricochet and other wrestlers that just, they don't have the personality and the character to go with it, it's tough to find success on the main roster on a weekly basis whenever you're not bringing anything in like the character department. So got to see them get better at that. Another thing that happened was, let me see here, the Final Testament. They took out Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits in a brawl. They made an appearance. They have a new logo, if you looked at their shirt. So now they have an opportunity to market that bad boy. So we'll see if they actually end up having some fan success. I don't know, right out of the gate, I'm going to need to see more, obviously. On paper, it makes sense, this faction. Scarlett does, she moves the needle. I'll tell you that. She definitely turns heads and all that good stuff. But you're going to have to do it a lot more than have some elite eye candy to make it feel like you guys are going to be a worthy faction to stick around here. Austin Theory, he got a win over Carmelo Hayes using the tights, rolling him up. And then afterwards, they tried to jump him. Carmelo Hayes, that is. Austin Theory and Grayson Waller tried to do a little 2-on-1. But then we saw Trick Williams make an appearance. And I would almost be shocked if Trick Williams doesn't enter the Royal Rumble. He had a massive, massive pop from the crowd there in Miami. They chanted, "Whoop that Trick." Obviously, they're behind him. Trick Williams wanted to help Carmelo Hayes because they have a tag team match this coming Tuesday on NXT. So, they wanted to make sure that they're on the same page, although Carmelo Hayes didn't like him getting involved in his business, yada, yada, yada. But, you guys already know how it is. Anywho, that does do it for this episode of SmackDown. I do believe that covers everything. So, I do want to thank you guys for listening. I do apologize as well because there is not going to be a Stack 'em Up Saturday this week. I just really want to get this episode sent to Matt as quickly as possible so you guys can consume it. And it could be out there on all the platforms well before the Royal Rumble begins. Give you guys some more content to keep you busy as we wait for this pay-per-view. But either way, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, go check out the Football Function podcast. That's my other podcast for anything football related. Like, we're here at the AFC and NFC championship games. So this is obviously a meaningful part of the NFL season, and we got you covered there on the Football Function podcast. It's your one-stop shop for everything football related, just like this is your one-stop shop for everything WWE related or just professional wrestling related. They even cover AEW over there on this WWE podcast. So, you got the Raw review, you got the AEW review, you got the mailbag, you got Wrestle Magic, you got the weekend review, you got the current state of WWE. So there's a lot of things to consume here on this platform. Go show all the hosts love. I know they will definitely appreciate it. Go follow any projects they got going on the side, because I promise you, if they're doing a good thing here, they're probably doing an even better thing over there. So go check them out as well. But I do want to give you guys all a shout out for listening. Hopefully you will come back next week as we are full on into WrestleMania season. Thank you guys so much. Have a damn good weekend. Enjoy the Royal Rumble. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.